Colorado was not a state when Congress passed the 14th Amendment in June of 1866, or when that amendment was ratified 2 summers later. Colorado would not become a state, the 38th in the Union, until August of 1876. America turned 100 that year. That's why Colorado is known as the Centennial State. Colorado has a history of taking voting seriously. It was the first state in the Union to grant universal suffrage. It did that in 1893 by popular vote. That means Colorado was well ahead of the rest of the country in granting women the right to vote, 27 years ahead. The 19th Amendment, granting all women in America the right to vote, wasn't ratified until 1920. Colorado is now first again, the first state via decision from its Supreme Court to say Donald Trump's actions as president, specifically during the Capitol riot on January 6th, met the legal standard of insurrection and therefore disqualifies him from the ballot in accordance with the 14th Amendment. This is not the last word on this particular legal matter, far from it. But the Colorado Supreme Court's decision to take the question of insurrection head on has legal, political, and moral weight that will not only shadow this holiday season, but the start of the Republican Party nominating process. And that is where we begin. CBS News Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa joins us now. Robert, your assessment of what the political impact and possible legal impact of the Colorado Supreme Court decision may be.
Major. For months, we've been discussing the players in the 2024 presidential race, and we talk about former President Trump, former Ambassador Nikki Haley, former Governor Christie, Governor DeSantis, and so many others. But the real players right now on the campaign front are the Supreme Court justices. How will they weigh in on some of these crucial issues that are going to face him about Trump's viability as a candidate moving forward in the coming weeks? His immunity. They're going to decide on that. They're going to potentially rule on some January 6 defendants. They're going to rule on the Colorado State Supreme Court ruling. And ultimately, they'll decide whether, if Trump's convicted in the January 6 case, whether his appeal will stand or not. And so we're looking at a Supreme Court that has an immense amount of influence on the horizon.
And a collision between the law and politics happening right before our eyes, and right as people in Iowa, New Hampshire, and maybe in South Carolina will be making monumental decisions about what direction the Republican Party does or doesn't go.
And it's often an uncomfortable place for the Supreme Court to be, with the court having its institutional standing questioned repeatedly by critics in recent years. People like Justice Clarence Thomas and his wife, Ginny Thomas, her political activity has been in the spotlight from some lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Her text messages with Mark Meadows, the former White House chief of staff, reported
specifically on and about January 6th and the events leading up to it.
And you have a former president who has all of these open questions that will ultimately land before the Supreme Court. The question is, does it break through with Republican voters as the voting starts to take place next year? And will it really matter in the general election? Because there is still the possibility, if the January 6 case moves forward as planned starting in March, maybe late spring, early summer, could Trump be a convicted felon and also be the nominee of a party?
A huge question, unresolved until we know for sure. Robert, I want to ask you about a poll we just saw released about an hour and a half ago. St. Anselm, a good poll in New Hampshire, respected. Here's what it says. Former President Trump, 44%, Nikki Haley, 30%, Chris Christie, 12%. That is a move up for Nikki Haley. That makes it look a bit more competitive in New Hampshire. If there is any momentum or movement, it's on the Nikki Haley side, upward, a little bit downward for former President Trump. What does this possibly suggest?
Well, it means for Nikki Haley that if she continues to rise in New Hampshire, whether she wins or loses the state, it could be her jolt that provides her with the bounds to stay in through her home state of South Carolina. It'd be a big political risk for her to stay in and lose South Carolina in a big way. So if New Hampshire gives her a lift, you can expect her to say, maybe I'll give it a roll of the dice in South Carolina, and maybe she stays in through Super Tuesday. I think back to 1992, Bill Clinton called himself the comeback kid. He didn't win New Hampshire.
Oh, he did not.
But he did well enough that it propelled him toward the nomination.
Right. Expectations matter a great deal. Is there any sense, Robert, that you have that any of this, what is going on in New Hampshire, a little bit of a lift for Nikki Haley, is translating at all in Iowa?
Nikki Haley could expect a tick up in Iowa as the weeks close. Iowa caucus goers are notoriously late for making some of their decisions. I think about Rick Santorum. It kind of broke for him in the final few days. For Mike Huckabee, the same. And so, yes, Ron DeSantis has visited 99 counties, but the Florida governor is by no means the favorite to come in second place against former President Trump. You could see Nikki Haley close strong in Iowa, and if she comes a strong second or maybe even a narrow third against DeSantis, that could really help her going into New Hampshire. But for Trump, it's about, can he have enough of a lead that he just seems like it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to be the nominee to stave off any so-called momentum for Haley?
We came in on this question of the Colorado Supreme Court. The word insurrectionist matters, and President Biden addressed that today. He was asked by reporters. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Is Trump an insurrectionist, sir?
Well, I think certainly they're self-evident. You saw it all. Now, whether the 14th Amendment applies, I'll let the court make that decision. But he certainly supported an insurrection. And no question about it. None. Zero.
No question about it, Robert. None. Zero from the President of the United States, suggesting if these two are the nominees of their respective parties, this will not be something set to the side by the Biden-Harris reelection campaign.
Not at all. And the Biden presidency was forged in the wake of January 6th. His inaugural address took place just days after an attack on the Capitol, where he gave those words. One of the phrases from his inaugural address was that this was a winter of peril, that this country was attacked by some of its own citizens during the certification process of an election. So Biden is always going to be in history a president connected to January 6th, the person who came after Trump, whose own election was challenged by the outgoing president who wouldn't even show up at that inauguration. So it's not surprising to see such a visceral reaction from the president himself. As much as presidents try to stay out of some of these legal matters, for the president, clearly it's political and personal.
Do you think there is any sense within the Trump campaign that this Colorado Supreme Court decision does more to continue that narrative long nursed by former President Trump all this year of being victimized by a legal process?
It could fuel that grievance, and that would be no surprise. But even if the Supreme Court weighs in on Colorado and says he's fine to be on the ballot, he's allowed to be on the ballot in other states, this idea of him being an insurrectionist before being convicted of anything regarding insurrection, if they allow him to be on the ballot, he still faces Jack Smith.
Right.
So it's not over for him if the Supreme Court says it's okay for you to be on the ballot in Colorado and elsewhere.
Not by a long stretch. Robert Costa, we thank you very much.